Could it be? For me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to my continued coverage of the 2023 NFL Scouting Combine, day number 4, the final day of the Scouting Combine. And what a fun finish to the Combine. Now, I'm going to keep it a buck with you. Offensive line went today. And generally speaking, I have zero interest in anybody north of 300 pounds participating in the Scouting Combine. I'm just going to be honest with you. Defensive linemen, offensive linemen, this isn't really where their skill set gets to get showcased. Unless you're some kind of a freak athlete, this really isn't going to be all that impressive. And so I'm a big tape guy when it comes to offensive linemen. Right? The Combine isn't going to move me one way or the other. You know, some of the better guys today moved well in terms of athleticism, but when it's all said and done, the 40s, I mean, really, you're looking at the 10-second split for these guys. None of them were really all that great. Even the guys that we think are going to be really good. There were some solid ones here and there. There were a few guys that stood out from an athletic standpoint. But again, just because their athletic profile was on display doesn't mean that they're, a superior offensive lineman. So again, I wasn't blown away by this group athletically, but it doesn't mean that they're not good football players. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, DJ had, he had 5 guys going in the first round on the offensive line. I think he had like 8 in the top 50, 8 or 9 of them, maybe 10 of them in the top 50. Let's see if I can't rattle off a few of these guys. I knew he liked Steve Avila out of TCU. I think he really liked Broderick Jones out of Georgia. He liked Cody Mauch out of North Dakota State. He liked John Michael Schmitz out of Minnesota, Peter Skoronski out of Northwestern, and Osiris Torrance. Or was it Osiris? I don't know if Osiris. I think Osiris Torrance made it out of Florida, and Darnell Wright out of Tennessee. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I believe, guys that he had in his top 50, I think. So I thought that there were a few guys that, tested well, but again, there wasn't any Mekhi Bectons in this group where you see a guy, we had a big guy like that, DeJuan Jones out of Ohio State. He's 374. Like, that's ridiculous. But he looked like a 374 pound, and he moved like a 374 pound man, right? Like, there were no freaks in this group. I just want to watch the tape, to be honest with you, on these guys. I've already watched it on Osiris Torrance. I know how I feel about him. I thought his tape was pretty damn good. Sans for the Georgia game when he went up against Jalen Carter. Outside of those few reps where he went against Jalen Carter, I thought he was outstanding. His tape is clean. You know what you're getting. He's not a great athlete, plus athlete, I should say. He's a solid athlete, but he's not a plus athlete, but he can get the job done. And that's probably going to be the case for a lot of these guys. But to me, and this is my preference, there's not much you're going to be able to see. They've got drills that they try to specifically highlight to show some of the offensive line coaches and some of the guys, scouts and things of that nature that are there in attendance, what some of these guys can do and put some of their talents on display. But, with offensive linemen, defensive linemen, it's really the pads have to be on, and there's got to be full contact in order for you to truly get a sense of what these guys are bringing to the table. And so I don't really have much to add on the offensive line, to be honest with you. I'm just keeping it a buck. But if Daniel Jeremiah says that this is a deep group, I believe him. And, from what I've seen, and I've probably watched 2 or 3 of these guys Broderick Jones, know his game. Watched a ton of Georgia football. And I told you I already watched Osiris Torrance, out of that group. Jarrett Patterson out of Notre Dame, know his game pretty well. So, there's a few guys in here that I can speak to, but I got work to do with the offensive line. But the main event for me was the running backs group, and wow, what a group it was. I liken it to the tight end position yesterday, where I told you guys in my react to day 3 of the combine, the entire tight end group was impressive. I mean, I singled out some guys, but I said I could literally just say the entire group was impressive. I'd take any one of them and just leave it at that. I feel the exact same way about the running back position. It's rare that I come out of the running back day of the combine feeling this good. First of all, every single one of these dudes can catch. I mean, there have been years where I've come to you guys after the running back day of the combine and I said, these guys can't catch. And there have been years where I felt like, man, most of these guys really caught it well. Every single one of these dudes caught the football well. I think on the afternoon of catchable balls that weren't thrown way out in front of a guy, where it was in his wheelhouse, in his framework, we might have had the ball hit the ground once or twice, max. I know Jahmyr Gibbs, who I absolutely love. He's one of my favorite players in this entire draft. He had a drop when they were running the wheel routes up the sideline, and they gave him another chance to do it over again, and he caught it. And I think there might have been one more drop. But, on the out routes, on the in routes, on the Texas route, on the flare routes, and even the wheel routes up the sideline, there were no drops. They had a little, almost like a little seam route up, where he releases, slightly gets inside of that backer, and then doesn't go across the field, kind of takes it up the field. Nobody dropped anything. This group had every different type of flavor you were looking for. You want a small scat back, got that. You want a big back, got that. You want a guy in between, got that. You want shifty, got that. You want power, got that. And all of them were athletically gifted. All of them could catch. The movement skills were fantastic. I walked away, and Daniel Jeremiah, before this group hit the field, said this is one of the deepest running back groups we've had in the draft in quite some time. And I said, okay, DJ, I'll let me decide that for myself. Let me see what is out here. He was not lying. Okay. Athletically, they checked every box from the first guy that went to the last guy that went. And then there were guys that didn't run the 40. And those guys were exceptional. Every single one of them. I'm actually wondering why Deuce Vaughn didn't run the 40. But anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through every single one of these dudes and just talk briefly about what I felt like their day was. And we'll do that. Since I don't have a lot to add to the offensive line, I've got some extra time on my hands. We're just going to talk about these backs real quick. So Devin, I knew I was going to mess his name up, from Texas A&M. Kane. We're going to go with Devin A. out of Texas A&M. 5'8", 188, ran a 4.32, was the fastest back out of the group. So we came out the gate swinging. First back came out, ran a 4.34 on his first run, 4.32 on his second run, and off to the races we went. I thought that he was fantastic, man. Sans for one little slip up where you had the drill where you got the four little bags on the ground that you have to jump in between. Then you've got a coach there with the bag that's going to lean it to one side or the other. You got to have a jump cut to one side, to the opposite side of where the bag goes. And then you got to squeeze inside of the two bags that are up there and get up the field. And he made the jump cut, but he was moving so damn fast that as he made the jump cut and got up the field, he didn't have time to avoid one of the bags, and he actually ran slam into the bag. Outside of that, he's fantastic. Speed, quickness, in and out of breaks, caught everything, looked the part of a third down back. Now, I'd love to see what he was able to do from a pass protection standpoint. You know, I would love to see what his contact balance looks like, because I got a little glimpse of it when he hit that bag. He was able to pop up, you know, real quick, and keep his feet. I think he kept his feet too. So that shows me a little bit of contact balance there. But I want to see what he looks like in those situations, because he was very impressive. And I've watched him at Texas A&M, but I really didn't watch him at Texas A&M. So really impressed with him. Thought he had a fantastic day. Tank Bigsby out of Auburn, 6 feet, 210, ran a 4.5, 640, you know, bigger body, even though he's only 210. He's got a bigger, thicker frame. Excuse me. He looked good. You know, another one of these guys that is an upright guy. You know, I like my fair share of upright runners. And so at 6 feet, 210, he's more of an upright guy. And I thought he ran well, thought he caught the football well. Another guy that I'm intrigued by. I'm intrigued after watching him. Chase Brown, watched a ton of Illinois, a lot of Big Ten football this year, with the Illini actually being a solid club, pushing Michigan to the limit. I remember watching that game. Chase Brown was one of their biggest weapons on offense. At times, he was their only offense in Champaign. 5'9", 209, ran a 4.43. He was fantastic today. He was absolutely fantastic today. Caught everything. And look, I don't need to really say caught everything, because everybody caught everything for the most part. But I thought his quickness, I thought his ability to be shifty, the agility, you know, all of that was on full display. There and I think DJ said that in his estimation, there are 10 to 12 starting running backs. You don't hear that very often in a draft. 10 to 12 starting running backs. He said maybe 13. And I'm just looking at this group, and I'm seeing guys that I'm saying, that's a starter. That's a starter. Looks like a starter to me. You know, so again, I got to watch the tape on some of these dudes, because athletic exploits is one thing. You know, how do you perform when you put on pads and a helmet could be a totally different situation. But Chase Brown looks like a starting NFL running back. Day one at that. But, you know, running back sometimes could be a little tricky. We'll see. I thought he was fantastic today. Zach Charbonnet is a guy that is highly rated. I think he is the third rated running back on DJ's board. Out of UCLA, former Michigan Wolverine, transferred over to UCLA and hasn't looked back. 6 feet, 214, ran a 4.5, 340. He's one of those physical bowling ball type running backs where guys just bounce off of him. You know, physically built, runs hard. You saw that today. And again, another guy that I just thought was smooth in his route running, caught it really well. Just every aspect of his workout was impressive, just like most of his counterparts here in this Group 13 to wrap up the combine. I mean, Zach Charbonnet, he didn't do anything to lower his stock. If anything, again, I can't see any running backs other than Bijan Robinson going in the first round, even though I absolutely love Zamir Gibbs and think, just like I banged the table for Alvin Kamara once upon a time, because I think that's who he is. a faster version, and we saw that today, and I've been saying this throughout the entire process. Jahmyr Gibbs is a faster version of Alvin Kamara, and I told anybody that would listen to me then. And that's probably been one of my biggest draft gems that I've had. That and probably Josh Allen, because I remember the conversation back then of Josh Allen being too inaccurate to be a high-level NFL quarterback. And then if you remember his first couple years in the league, he wasn't very accurate either. And so people were saying, see, told you so. And I was going to die on that Josh Allen hill, just like I was going to die on that Alvin Kamara should be a first-round running back hill. And we saw what that ended up turning into for the New Orleans Saints. Jahmyr Gibbs should be a first-round running back, but he won't be, and Zach Charbonnet won't be either, but both will be in the second round. I can assure you of that. If Jahmyr Gibbs can't sneak into the first round, and it would take like a Kansas City Chiefs team, like it did with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, someone back into the first round to take Gibbs. I just don't see anybody doing that. I thought Dallas could have had a shot if they were going to allow Tony Pollard to walk, but I think what's going to ultimately happen is they're going to keep Pollard, probably move on from Zeke. I don't know what that number is. Is it a number that allows Dallas to walk away with little to no harm from a penalty standpoint? If that is the case, you move on from Zeke and then you insert Bijan Robinson, and you probably upgraded the position, to be honest with you, if you do that. So we'll see what happens there. But Zach Charbonnet was outstanding. Tyvon Evans, Louisville, 5'9", 225. Like when I saw that size, because he was on the ground, sizing up his 40, and I see 5'9", 225, I'm like, God damn, that's a really compact, thick, physically built back. And he doesn't look it though. But he ran a 4.52. That is an excellent time. And he caught the ball so well, just like everybody else did in this group. I was blown away because, and you know what? Maybe I shouldn't be as surprised that all of these guys can catch, because the way the game has evolved, if you're a running back and you really want to have sticking power in the NFL, you better be able to catch the damn football. Gone are the days of the guys that only have one role, which is I'm just going to be first and second down. Like those guys are dinosaurs now. Those first and second down guys, like even Nick Chubb can catch a screen. Even Nick Chubb can come out of the backfield and catch a flare route. Would you prefer to have somebody else a little bit more skilled in that regard doing that? Yeah, absolutely. But Nick Chubb can do that. Derrick Henry catches screens. How many times have you seen Derrick Henry catch a 67-yard screen? Like even those guys can catch the football out of the backfield, even though you would prefer to have someone else doing it. Like you can't just be first and second down. All right, I'm going to tag in my third down back. Like gone are the days of, Jerome Bettis deferring to Amos Zeraway, who does nothing else but catch the football out of the backfield. Like that doesn't fly anymore. You have to have a guy that can do it on all three downs. Now, look, you're going to have other guys that get opportunities, and you're going to have some third down backs and things of that nature, but you better have a guy that can do all three things, because on second down, you may need to throw it. On first down, you may be looking to throw it, and that first and second down back better be able to catch it. And so maybe I shouldn't be so surprised that all of these guys now come in being able to catch, because that was a skill that a lot of these guys back in the day didn't work on. You weren't really concerned about catching the football. You were worried about running it. And I think as the game has evolved, and you're seeing it in college game, these guys are playing in these offenses where the running back is a big part of the passing game, and you have to be able to catch it out of the backfield. And it's really benefiting these players coming into the league, because they're already ready for the workload that comes with being an NFL back. Tyvon Evans out of Louisville, I thought was awesome. Jahmyr Gibbs, Alabama, 5'9", $199, ran a 4.36. I knew he was fast. I didn't know how fast. I knew he was going to run faster than, the 4.5 whatever Alvin Kamara ran. I knew he was going to run sub 4.5. I did not expect sub 4.4. Just going to be honest. I knew he was fast. I was thinking low 4.4s. I was thinking 4.42, 4.41. I wasn't thinking 4.36. I mean, that elevates his stock even more, in my opinion. But we already knew he was a home run hitter. And I was disappointed because his day was absolutely sparkling clean. I'm talking about squeaky clean up until he had the drop on the wheel route down the sideline. And I just think he turned his hand the wrong way. Had he turned his hand like this, he would have caught it. He tried to catch it like this, and he dropped it. And he knows better than that. That said, he was outstanding. He was fantastic, just like most of these backs. And I to me, he's the second best back in this draft behind Bijan Robinson, and I would spend a first-round pick on Jahmyr Gibbs, but that's just me. Evan Hull out of Northwestern, he was one of the guys that they focused in on because he kept running to the end zone on every single rep he had, no matter what, whether it was a rush, a catch, whether they were 80 yards away from the end zone when they started the drill, 40 yards, 60 yards, doesn't matter. He was running all the way to the end zone. He's 5'10", 209, ran a 4.47. He runs hard. You can tell by how he runs. He runs hard. One of those guys that's running to try to dig up some dirt when he's running, right? Same thing I could say about Tank Bigsby. Some of these guys run hard. We saw it with Isaiah Pacheco, who runs hard, right? Ran a 4.39 at the combine last year, blazed it, but he runs hard. One of those guys where they don't always run on their toes, right? Their entire foot hits the ground when they run. You know what I'm talking about? Those guys run hard. But he was impressive. He caught it well. He did everything, in such a manner where you look at him and you say, he could be a big-time help for some team. And I think DJ said he caught a lot of passes at Northwestern because, that was a big part of their offense. I remember once upon a time, they had the super back at Northwestern. I don't know if they do that anymore, but, for years they had the super back. Guy that was like a fullback / H-back / running back hybrid type that did everything, which is why they called him the super back. And those guys were getting drafted into the league. I don't think he was a super back, Evan Hull, because he's too good to be a super back. I was impressed with him, man. He had an outstanding day. Rashawn Johnson out of Texas. So he was the other running back at Texas. 6 feet, 219, ran a 4.59. He had a solid day, man. Really solid day. Caught it, did everything. He's more of the bigger back variety. So, and there are quite a few of those in this group. But again, another guy that I walked away saying, checked every box for me. Kenny McIntosh. If there was one guy that I was actually slightly disappointed in, it'd probably be Kenny McIntosh. Out of Georgia, 6 foot, 204 pounds, ran a 4.63. I just thought he was faster than that. I knew he wasn't a blazer. You couldn't have gotten me to sign up for 4.63. There was no way he was running a 4.6 anything in my mind. I was like, oh yeah, probably like 4.54, something like that, 4.55, somewhere in that neighborhood. Anything less than a 4.55, and that's a win for Kenny McIntosh. I knew he wasn't a blazer, but 4.63, that's a little tough to stomach, But we know he can catch it out of the backfield. That was one of his specialties at Georgia. He can bring a little bit of a variety to the game. I just thought he was faster than that. But he caught it. He did everything else. All his field work was clean. Just thought he was faster. Keaton Mitchell out of ECU. I'm intrigued by this small guy here at 5'8", 179, ran a 4.37. I love those types of backs. Those are the dudes that can really hurt you. If they end up on the right team, those are the Jerick McKinnon types. Now, don't get it twisted. Jerick McKinnon, it was, probably 5'10", 5'9", 5'10". But Jared McKinnon was like 205, 207 pounds, though, not 179. So there's a huge difference there, right? But the impact remains the same. You get a guy like that out in space, and DJ kept saying it over and over again, and I can see it. Dude can flat out fly. Had the third fastest time of this group, and this was a fast group. You got 4.32, 4.43, 4.36, 4.47, 4.37, 4.41, 4.46. Like, this is a fast group that we're talking about here. So you throw a guy like that out in space and see you later. So you could tell he's quick and he's fast. So he'll be interesting. Again, not the biggest guy in the world, but I enjoyed watching him run around out there today. And he'll be a guy I'll be keeping tabs on to see where he ends up, to see if he can have an impact. I liken him to a Tariq Cohen. And I haven't watched him, right, to see if he's doing some of the things that Tariq Cohen was doing on tape when he was coming out of, I think it was North Carolina A&T. Like, I don't know if, he's doing that, or was it North Carolina Central? It's one of those North Carolina schools. But Keaton Mitchell came from a Carolina school. So he get that kind of his body type. I know Tariq Cohen's probably like 5'6", but it's a similar body type, similar size. I would really like to see what he was doing on film. And what's the crazy part is DJ was saying he needed to catch the ball better. He caught it phenomenally today. There were no drops, there were no double catches, none of that. So I want to watch and see what he did on tape to see if this is something that he can do consistently. Because if he can catch, he could be a problem. Cam Peoples out of App State, 6'1", 217, 461. Definitely an upright guy, obviously 6'1". He, to me, of all the guys that were out there doing the field work, was the one that looked the least comfortable. He was the one that looked a little choppy. His movements weren't fluid, but he caught everything. He did everything. With regard to and respect to the rest of the group, if I asked you, show me the running back that doesn't belong, he would have been it. Cam Peoples out of App State. That's just my personal opinion. But he's a bigger back. He's a different type of guy, but there are some bigger backs in here, and they look like they belong. Speaking of which, Demetric Prince out of Tulsa, 6 feet, 217, ran a 4.41. He looked like he belonged. Similar size, similar measurables, totally different athletic profile, however. Okay. He caught the football well. All right. And so he was impressive. So just another guy to add into the mix with this group. Then there's Bijan Robinson. He was the main attraction. He was the guy that they were focusing on the entire day, and he didn't disappoint. 5'11", 215, ran a 4.46. He probably wanted to run faster than that. He didn't need to run any faster than that. 4.46 is plenty fast for what he brings to the table. The movement skills, they were legit. Between him, it was between Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Chase Brown, and Deuce Vaughn in terms of movement skills. Those guys are on a different level. The quickness, the silky smooth way that they're able to string cuts together without actually slowing down. Like, to me, I've always said this. If you want to be an elite runner in space, and I've usually associated this with kick returners as well. The guys that are the best at kick returning are the guys that have the ability to cut on a dime without losing or breaking stride, right? You want to know why Devin Hester was so good? His feet never stopped moving. Devin made a cut, and it was never Devin having to break you down. Devin made a cut and just kept going. Devin stuck his foot in the ground and kept going. He never stopped. Devin Hester's feet never stopped. You know, with Cordero Patterson, he ain't doing all of that Devin Hester shit where Devin would give you all of this and Devin would be giving you this and he's still running forward, right? You don't know what to do. Like Cordero Patterson ain't doing none of that shit. He stick his foot in the ground one time, boop, and that's it. And he never stops. There are guys that aren't even fast. Those two guys are blazers. There were guys that were phenomenal punt and kickoff return men in the league, like Joshua Cribbs. Me and my buddy used to talk about this all the time because he could never understand why Joshua Cribbs was any good. He's like, the dude is slow. He's like a 4.6 40. I'm like, you know, that shit don't matter because he doesn't have to stop to make a cut. It's just decisive. It's downhill, foot in the ground, boom, keep it going, and you never stop. And the dynamic guys out in space, the guys that can take the double and turn it into a home run, the guy that hits the seeing eye single, bounces off a guy, and now it's one-on-one with the safety. Those are the guys that take it to the crib because they don't have to slow down. They can string cuts together or they can make a sharp cut without slowing down. Bijan Robinson did that all day long. Jahmyr Gibbs did that all day long. Chase Brown did that all day long. Devin A did that all day long. And Deuce Vaughn did that all day long. Bijan Robinson was as advertised. He's got natural hands. You can tell. Some of these guys, and there's nothing wrong with this. They had to look it in. Do whatever you got to do to make sure you do your job. He caught the ball like a receiver. You know, a lot of times he didn't even have to look it in. And that can be dangerous sometimes when you don't look it in. Because if you start moving before you secure the rock, you already turn your head and your shoulders are going up the field. That's how you drop it, right? However, and when you're a receiver and you trust your hands, that's not even something you think about. That ball's coming. You know you're going to catch it. You're already here. You see the ball coming into your hands. Make sure your hand's in the right place. But you're already thinking, all right, what am I doing with this? Defender's bearing down on me from my inside. I'm going to catch this. I'm turning outside up the sideline, right? You're already thinking 2 steps ahead. But he's doing that as a running back. You can see it. He's running the drill. He's catching it. He's already turning up the field. And he hasn't even secured the rock yet because he's so confident in his hands. So you can see it with Bijan Robinson that he's just a complete player, man. Complete player. I want to see what he looks like in the pass pro department, but I'm assuming if DJ's got him at number 4 overall in the draft, that he checks off every box, every single box, including pass protection. But I would like to see that. Tavion Thomas out of Utah, 6 feet, 237, ran a 4.75. And DJ compared him to LeGarrette Blount, who ran a 4.74 at the combine once upon a time. He didn't do any of the on the field work. He decided, I guess I'll just do the rest of it at my pro day. Probably a smart move, especially if he can't catch, because this group was on fire. So if he wasn't sure of his hands or what he was going to do, and honestly speaking, he probably needed to do that just because he's the only guy that even remotely came close to running a 4.7. You know, the next closest guy to him was a 4.63 by Kenny McIntosh, which was a surprise because, again, Kenny McIntosh, you watch him, he doesn't strike you as a 4.6 guy, but no one was even remotely close to him. So he was going to look totally different. He would probably look like Cam Peoples out there, but except Cam Peoples ran a 4.61. So might have been in his best interest to just say, I'll just save it for my pro day. So Roderick Thompson Jr. out of Texas Tech, 5'11", 207, ran a 4.68. I stand corrected. He was the closest to the 4.7. And I thought he was another guy that he caught it well, but he looked a little stiff. He looked a little choppy. It didn't look fluid. It looked like he was forcing it. But he caught the football. He did everything. Man, there were some great catches on those wheel routes up the sideline too. My goodness, this was a fantastic effing tastic group. I feel like I'm leaving somebody out. Let me go see if I can't track the guy down that didn't run, but he came out, did the field work. I want to say he was from Houston. I'm curious now because he was so good throughout the drills. I don't want to think this is him, Eric Gray, Oklahoma. Eric Gray out of Oklahoma. I'm writing his name down too. He was fantastic today. He did not run the 40, but he did the on-field work. And my goodness, man, he had some spectacular catches throughout the afternoon. Speaking of which, the 4 guys that I jotted down, adding Eric Gray into the mix, was Deuce Vaughn, Tajay Spears, Muhammad Ibrahim, and Eric Gray were guys that ended up doing the field work but did not run the 40. Let's knock them out real quick. Deuce Vaughn, the do-it-all running back out of K-State. We all watched him play this year. He was a huge part of Kansas State's season, and Deuce Vaughn is literally the guy. See what his size was, because they don't usually give you the size of the guys that don't run the 40. They just show up in the drill, and they'll give you stats, but they don't give you their size. So, he's going to be knocked for his size. Obviously, we all watched him. He's 5'5", checked in at 179. Didn't run the 40. I don't know if that's an indictment on him speed-wise, but we know he might be the quickest back in this draft. I thought his movement skills were off the charts during the drills. Like I said, I lumped him in with Bijan, Jameer, and Devin in terms of movement skills. Deuce was right there, man, holding his own with some of the big boys in this year's draft class. And I know some people are going to try to shit on him because of his size. I don't give a damn. There's a place in the league for guys like him, and he's going to go. And if he lands on the right team, he's going to be a problem. He could easily turn it, and obviously he's not rocked up like Austin Eckler, but he could turn into an Austin Eckler type. I could easily see that happening. How tall is Austin Eckler anyway? Probably can't be no more than 5'9". Austin Eckler. I'm gonna go with 5'8". Can't be any more than 5'9" though. I don't want to sell him short. I know he's a smaller dude, but he's a big dude too, though. Let's see. Oh, they got him listed at 5'10", 200. Now, the 200, I believe, because Austin is a big dude, rocked up. 5'10". I didn't think he was that big. I didn't think he was that tall. 5'8". Okay, 5'8". That's his real height. Okay, I found it. 5'8", 200 pounds. So that's the biggest difference, is Austin could take a little bit of a beating because he's a bigger back in terms of size, weight-wise. I like Deuce Vaughn a lot. I think he could do a lot of that quick, catch the football, make dudes miss out in space type shit. Another guy to watch in this draft. Tajay Spears did not run the 40. And I don't think he's going to run fast, which is why I don't think he ran the 40. But it's crazy because he had a 39-inch vert and he had a 10.5 broad. That usually translates to a fast time. Now, it doesn't always. But at 5'10", and I'm going to go ahead and get his measurables down now. At 5'10", 201, Tajay Spears, I watched a lot of Tajay Spears this year, including that bowl game against USC where they upset the Trojans, and he lit them up. This guy is bouncing off of defenders, making people miss out in space. He was one of those dudes that I watched this year, and I went, who the hell is this dude? I don't think he's going to run sub 4.5, but I do think he's going to run in the 4.5s. And maybe he's been consistently running and it's been like 4.59 and he didn't want to scare anybody away, so he didn't run it. I'll be hunting down his 40 time after his pro day, because I would like to see what that looks like. Because that could determine for some where he ends up going in the draft. But make no mistake about it, hell of a career, hell of a season, and hell of a back. So, and then another guy was Mohammed Ibrahim out of Minnesota. I thought he was going to come out last year. He had a fantastic season last year, and I thought he was going to come out. He went back and had another ridiculous campaign for the Gophers, the Golden Gophers. 5'8", 203. He did not run the 40 either. Now, he's going to be an interesting evaluation because, again, another guy that I don't think is going to be lightning fast, but you talk about, natural, pure runners with physicality. Mohammed Ibrahim checks off all the boxes. And like I said, with all the other running backs, Deuce Vaughn, Tajay Spears, Mohammed Ibrahim, and Eric Gray out of Oklahoma, they all caught the football exceptionally well. So I was really impressed with this group. Eric Gray is 5'9.5", 207, and he made some of the best catches of the day out of the running back group. It was crazy because Zamir Gibbs had a drop, and then the next person to go was Eric Gray, and he makes a damn near diving stab on a ball that's out in front of him, and you're just like, whoa. You know what I'm saying? So he had a couple of catches throughout the day on the field work where it was just really impressive. So I'm looking at the list of running backs right now, and we didn't see Zach Evans out of Mississippi, Israel Abanikanda out of Pitt, Dwayne McBride out of UBA. So there's still guys. Sean Tucker out of Syracuse, Travis Dye, was nursing an injury out of USC. Kendre Miller, I remember watching him for TCU. It was a shame they got to the national championship game and he was injured and he didn't get to play. And he was their big hammer physical back. I don't think it would have made a big difference against Georgia, but it would have helped if they would have had him because he was their hammer. And they needed it against that physical Georgia defense. But anyway, there's 4 or 5 guys that didn't even perform today that are top tier backs in this year's draft class. So this draft class at running back is absolutely loaded. And as I said about the tight ends, I wouldn't mind grabbing me one. And honestly, as a Commanders fan, we could use one. I don't know what the status on J.D. McKissick is. Jonathan Williams is cool, but he's not a difference maker. And I'm not passing up a running back because of Jonathan Williams' presence on the roster. I really like what I saw in week 18 from Jarrett Patterson. I am not passing up on one of these young boys because of Jarrett Patterson. If I get my hands on one of these boys in the 3rd day of the draft, 5th round, 6th round, if I get my hands on one of these boys, trust and believe I would love to do so. Preferably one of these, like if I could replace Jarrett Patterson, an undersized running back, with Deuce Vaughn, another undersized running back, sign me up. And Deuce Vaughn, I think, will be around day 3, right? Sign me up. There are going to be some guys that are going to be available later in the draft. Evan Hall out of Northwestern. Some of these dudes are going to be available later in the draft. Sign me up for one of these dudes to add to the mix. Keep in mind, I don't know what they're going to ultimately do with Antonio Gibson. If you're thinking ahead, sign me up for one of these boys. Like, the draft at the running back position may not be this deep next year if Antonio Gibson is to walk. Yep, you got Brian Robinson, but you're going to need another dude. If you're not going to re-sign Brian Robinson, or if you're not going to re-sign Antonio Gibson, maybe you don't know that right now. You don't know if you're going to re-sign Antonio Gibson or not. But if you're even thinking about not re-signing him, take one of these boys, man. It can't hurt. And again, I'm not telling you to do it early. I'm not telling you to do it in the first, second, or third. But again, 4th round, day 3 hits, 4th round, 5th round. I'm looking. I'm sniffing. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. So tomorrow on the podcast, what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down the combine overall, give you the positions that stood out to me. And I think I've already done that, but I haven't talked about the combine in totality. It's just been isolated, that particular day. What did I see that particular day? So I'm going to bring all 4 days together and tell you what, after seeing what I saw out on the field, and again, some of the bigger names in the draft, like Jalen Carter, like Devon Witherspoon, did not even participate on the field at the combine. So we'll go over what I think are the strongest groups, what are some of the weaker groups. After having, laid eyes on all of the groups now, I will rank those groups and the pool of players coming from each of those groups on tomorrow's podcast. But in any event, let's get to the comment section. We'll take a couple of comments and we'll get out of here. So Rich writes, I don't know if it was just me today, but I was impressed by Kansas tackle Earl Bostic Jr. He looked good today. He was solid. He did fall down and he had to do a drill over again because he did fall. But he had a solid day. And, we pretty much got through this combine. It stands for, I can't remember, I think it was a corner. It might have been a corner or a safety. We pretty much got through this combine relatively healthy. And then there was the second offensive line group where 2 guys went down. One went down on the 40 run with a hammy, and then we didn't even see what happened to the other guy. He was just down, and it took a while for them. They went to commercial break to tend to him, and so he didn't finish his workouts. But we also had some receivers that didn't finish. The USC receiver, Jordan, I always forget his name. Let's see. Jordan Addison did not finish the workout. And I didn't know that. He didn't finish the workout. Neither did, there was another guy that Jalen Hyatt out of Tennessee didn't finish the workout on the field. But up until those tackles, those offensive linemen went down, it was pretty clean from an injury standpoint. But Earl Bostic, fine in my book. Let's see. Rich says Blake Freeland from BYU looked good today too. So I'll give you the guys that look good, but again, it's only because they were more athletically gifted than the guys that they were in the group with. So it really doesn't speak to their game. It just spoke to their athleticism. And then in comparison to the rest of the group, this wasn't an overly athletic group of offensive linemen. Like, the gold standard for the offensive line, for me, athletically, again, doesn't mean that these guys can play, just athletically, I think you got to go back to the 14 draft. If I'm not mistaken, and don't get me wrong, I think it was the 14 draft. Could have been the 15, but I really think it was the 14 draft. Because if I'm not mistaken, the 14 draft was the year that Washington gave the Rams the second overall pick, Robert Griffin, the third draft. The first year we were good. We made the playoffs, so they didn't get a great pick. That next year he got injured, and that was the all-in for week 1. We sucked, and they ended up with the second pick overall in the draft, and they took the tackle out of Auburn. That was the year when it was the tackle out of Auburn. I can't remember his name. It was Matthews Jr., it was Taylor Lewan, and there were like 2 other dudes. all going in like the top. I want to say Lawan was the last to go, like at 13. There was like 5 tackles that went in the top 13 in that draft. They were all athletic freaks, and that was probably the gold standard from, movement skills athletically in a draft, offensive line wise. We didn't have anything remotely close to that today. Guys, we had like 3 or 4 guys total, barely eclipsed the sub 5 mark, right? Like every year you usually get the one dude that's a freak that runs like a 4.78. We didn't have a guy even close to that this year, right? So here were the guys that stood out. You just named Earl Bostic Jr. out of Kansas. He ran a 5.06, right? So that stands out. Braden Daniels was one of my standouts, but he's 294 pounds and he ran a 4.99, right? So he looked different than everybody else because athletically he was better, right? Another guy that stood out, John Gaines II from UCLA stood out. He ran a 5.02. That's why he stood out. He was athletically superior to most of the guys here. Oklahoma's Anton Harrison, 6'4", 315, ran a 4.99, right? Again, athletically superior. Broderick Jones looked smoother than everyone else. To me, 6'5", 311, ran a 4.98, but he went to Georgia. We expect that from Bulldogs, right? Then we had guys like Darnell Wright from Tennessee, 6'5", 333, ran a 5.01. And to your point, the guy from BYU, how did I miss him? Blake Freeland, here he is. Blake Freeland ran a 4.99 at 6'8", 302. So, he's a big guy and ran a sub 5.40. So those are the guys that stood out, but they stood out because athletically they were superior to these guys. I mean, we had 40 times that, again, 5.40 for a guy that's 3 is a good time, but this wasn't the most athletically gifted group. So anyway, I digress. Blake Freeland definitely was a part of that group. Niners fan says, I feel like Gibbs is going to be better than Bijan Robinson. He reminds me of CMC a little bit. I keep going back to Alvin Kamara. He's Alvin Kamara, a faster version of Alvin Kamara. That's what I see. That's what DJ said too. So I feel vindicated because I've been saying that, and then DJ goes and says the exact same thing. And I think the machine spit out, and that machine is usually like on point, but that's because the machine has the benefit of all the combine times, vertical, broad jump, so it can enter in some numbers that we wouldn't have, unless you were sitting there jotting all this shit down. But the machine spit out Jamal Charles for Jahmyr Gibbs, which isn't a bad comp. Because they were both speed demons. I just think Jahmyr Gibbs is more of a threat out of the backfield to catch it than Jamal Charles ever was. Okay. And in his day, backs weren't, backs didn't have to catch it the way that they do now. Bijan Robinson's comp was Edgerrin James. And I didn't even remember Edge being that fast. He ran a 4.38. He was a bad boy, though. A lot of people, Edgerrin James was to young backs coming up in the game what AI was to some of the young boys coming up in the NBA game who were impacted. I didn't realize how big of an impact Edgerrin James had on a lot of the young backs that ended up coming into the league after him. Edge was huge. I wouldn't be shocked if he was better than Bijan Robinson. But to me, it's always, where do these guys end up? Fit and scheme and where you go, to me, go a long way in determining how your career is going to go. I got a super chat from Dejan Bell. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Dejan Bell, writes, other than height and weight, what sets Anthony Richardson apart from a guy like Malik Willis coming out? So Malik Willis, to me, I don't remember if he ran the 40 or not. I don't think he did. But I don't think he would have run a 4.4. That's personal, not me personally. I don't think he would have run a 4.4. He might have run I think he would have run in the 4.5s. I believe that. I don't think he would have run a 4.4. So athletically, I think Anthony Richardson is superior. I just think arm-wise, I think it's probably similar. I think both of them have cannons. But I think Anthony Richardson, I think he throws the ball with a little bit more touch than Malik Willis does. He's one of those 99-mile-an-hour fastball dudes, no matter where he's throwing the football. And I think Richardson, a lot of people walked away shocked because they didn't think he had that kind of finesse. You saw it on those deep balls yesterday. And I keep talking about that first play against LSU. You turned on that game, and the very first snap is play action fake up top. Beautiful dime over the top of two defenders right into the hands of his receiver. And so he can throw with touch. And I think that's something that Malik Willis lacked a little bit of. And then you can't say other than height and weight, because that is the biggest difference between the two guys. Similar arms, similar athletic profile. The biggest difference is height and weight. You say, well, what's the biggest difference between Cam Newton and Lamar Jackson? Height and weight, right? Like, and obviously Lamar's speed, but you can't compare the two because you can't take that height and weight out of it. That's a big part of the evaluation. So that's what really sets Anthony Richardson apart, is height and weight. What sets Jalen Hurts apart? He's not the biggest guy in the world. He doesn't have a cannon for an arm. We saw that on the final play of the Super Bowl. He couldn't even get it remotely close to the end zone, right? What sets Jalen Hurts apart is his build, his thickness. Pause. His ability to squat a small house. So when he hits you, you fall back and he falls forward. He's not your average mobile quarterback, right? His build is totally different. So it makes a big difference. The height and weight make a big difference. And I think Anthony Richardson can throw it with a little bit more touch. Greg Robinson. Thank you, Kevin, the PRF. Greg Robinson was that tackle that the Rams took number 2 overall out of Auburn. It was Jake Matthews. It was Taylor Lewan. I'm telling you, there was like 2 other dudes that went in the top. I think Lewan was the last one to be taken. It was like 5 tackles in that year's draft. It was ridiculous. Let's get back to the comment section. And Niners fan says, this O-line class feels underwhelming, honestly. Is Skoronski really good? Is really going to be a stud left tackle in the league? Even so, there aren't too many great tackles this year. So here was the conversation that DJ was having about Skoronski. He said that the same thing we heard about Elijah Vera Tucker when he was coming out of USC. Remember, he could play tackle, which he did at SC. However, if you want him to be an all-pro and a potential Hall of Famer, you kick him inside the guard, which is what the Jets ultimately did before injuries took effect and he had to go back outside. But a lot of people are saying Skoronski, if you want him to be a solid player, stick him outside the tackle. He can handle it. But if you want him to be an all-pro, Pro Bowl type player, put him inside at guard. So I don't even know if he is naturally a tackle. I think most people project him inside as a guard. Your best tackle in this year's draft may ultimately be Broderick Jones out of Georgia. A lot of people like Cody March out of North Dakota State, but Broderick Jones out of Georgia may be your best tackle prospect this year, to be honest with you. I feel the same way that you do. You know, I think this is an underwhelming group because there is no star power on the offensive line. There is no star power this year. Let's see. I think that is it. Red Wings writes, Jordan Addison was nursing a back strain, which is why he left the workout early. I expect him to look better at his pro day. That's what they said. I didn't have a problem with the way he looked. I thought he made some great grabs before he left the field yesterday. He looked the part. I just hope everything's good with him. Jalen Hyatt had a little tweakage, so he didn't finish the workout. Again, he dropped the ball. That was the difference. Jordan Addison caught the ball. Jalen Hyatt had some drops. Maybe that's why he decided to shut it down. All of a sudden, he was banged up after he had a couple drops of some deep balls and things of that nature. He was like, yeah, I'm going to just shut it down, save it for my pro day. And that's cool, too. You know, whatever you feel like you need to do, go ahead and do that. But anyway, that, my friends, is going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on my 2023 NFL Scouting Combine coverage. 4 days of covering the new crop of NFL hopeful NFL draftees, rather. And these hopefuls did themselves justice at the combine, and I got a lot of work to do. There are some positions that stand out above the rest. We'll talk about that and then some. There's a lot to talk about. This Lamar Jackson thing is really starting to become a real storyline, and I knew it would. I knew we would get here. I didn't know if it would happen this year. I was thinking maybe next year we'll get to this point. We might have arrived at Armageddon there. Derek Carr's situation is fascinating. The Jets are fascinating. DeAndre Hopkins is going to be traded. That's becoming a fascinating situation. Where will he end up? We got a lot to discuss tomorrow, so I look forward to chopping it up with you guys on the Louie T Network podcast. And now, combine in the rear view. Pro days are up next. We're about to hit that straight line, that mad dash to the draft. Now that the combine is behind us. So looking forward to that. And looking forward to chopping it up with you guys about the draft, free agency, start of the new league year, all that good stuff as we embark upon all of those milestones on our way to the draft. So with that said, you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll reconvene tomorrow for the Louie T Network podcast. And I look forward to chopping it up with you guys about any and everything National Football League. Until then, you guys take care. God bless. And as always, good night.